Before we start the show, may I ask you for a favor? Would you be willing to rate and review the podcast on the app wherever you listen to it? If you're willing to do this and send me a screenshot of your review, I will send you a Starbucks gift card in gratitude of you taking this time to do that. So it's super simple for you to do this. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, please leave a review on that app. Take a screenshot of the review and then email it to support@yoursalesmaven.com, and then we will send you back a $5 Starbucks gift card. Your ratings and reviews allow other people to take a chance and maybe listen to the podcast. So I'm so grateful if you would be willing to do this on my behalf. Thank you so much. And now please enjoy the show.
Are you ready to boost your confidence when selling so you're able to close more deals? Nikki Roush will show you how to build a foundation of skills and a mindset that creates sales success without feeling pushy or salesy and without fear of rejection. She is a sales strategist and coach with more than 25 years of sales experience and is master certified in neuro-linguistic programming. This is a radically different approach to selling. It's a no sleaze, no slime, and no stress approach to building your business. This is Sales Maven. Here's Nikki.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Roush. I'm your own personal sales maven. I'm here to offer you tips, techniques, and strategies to master your sales conversations. Today is an episode that's just for you and me, here to talk about a little phrase that gets way overly used and sometimes used in times that the intent behind it is positive, and yet it really breaks down rapport. So here's what we're going to talk about today. This phrase, thank you for your patience. Now, you've probably heard it. You've probably had it said to you multiple times, and maybe you've even said it yourself multiple times in client interactions. One of the things that I think people often forget is just because a phrase is common doesn't necessarily mean that it has the intent or that it lands the way that you intend it to land. Sometimes this phrase, thank you for your patience, can be such a rapport breaker. And here's when it is. It's when it's being forced on the other person, when they have no chance of doing anything because they feel like they're at your mercy, and then you thank them for their patience, which I don't know. Okay, so maybe it's just me, but when somebody kind of has me at their mercy and then they thank me for my patience, I feel a little annoyed because I feel like I have no choice. Don't thank me for something that you're forcing upon me. And as a matter of fact, if you've been listening to the podcast, you probably know I prefer asking permission, asking questions versus making statements, talking at somebody versus talking with somebody. So this came up because recently I had a situation in my own business where I was having some problems with something and I needed to get on to, I needed some troubleshooting. So I called the company that I pay money to every single month and talked to their customer service or their tech support, really. And the person couldn't seem to solve the problem. Kept, telling me to try certain things, and I kept trying certain things and they weren't working. And she just kept saying, thank you for your patience, but I don't really have a choice here. So of course I was being nice, but after being on the phone with her for 45 minutes, I knew this person wasn't going to be able to solve my problem because she just kept saying, thank you for your patience, putting me on hold, coming back, asking me to try something else, then putting me on, thank you for your patience. Let me look at something, coming back. And so I know this is like a phrase that people give, but after being thanked for my patience for about 5 times and 45 minutes in, I'm starting to feel less patient. I'm starting to feel less inclined to want to be gracious in this moment because I keep wanting to be like, can somebody else help me? which I finally, in a nice way, did ask, is there somebody else that could help me? Can this be elevated in some way? Which then she said, yes, there is a hold time to talk to this person, but let me get you in touch with them. And then they put me on what ended up being dead air. And I waited for 40 more minutes and nobody ever came on the line. So you can imagine that my patience was wearing pretty thin at this point. And so it made me remember that I had written an article about this years ago, a blog post about this. And I went back and looked up this blog post. Now, I remember why I wrote the blog post, but I also didn't share in there the story behind it, which was another situation where I had hired somebody to do some work for my business. And there was a part of the contract, they were supposed to be delivering something every week to me. And consistently, I think it was the only we had a 10-month contract, and it was only the first 2 weeks of the contract that they ever delivered this weekly deliverable that they had it was promised, it was part of the contract. And every week after that, the person would say, thank you for your patience while I, have been busy with this other thing and haven't been able to get this to you. I'll have it to you next week. And then they probably would get it to me next week, but now it's a week late and now they owe me another one. And this just went on and on and on. And I remember being so frustrated that this person just kept thanking me for my patience. And I was thinking, I actually am not patient. And you don't know it because we're not actually having a live call about this. And I'm letting it go on. Now, I ended up firing the person. They were shocked by being fired by me, and so shocked that I pointed out that they weren't delivering on the contract. Their response was, nobody had ever fired me before. I can't believe this. I feel like we need to talk about this some more. And I was like, no, we're past the point of talking about it. And then I wrote this article. Thank you for your patience. And I went back and looked it up because there's some great little examples that I give in here. So I want to share it with you today and see if any of these resonate. And so I'm going to share, here's a common way that people will use this phrase. And then here's what you might say instead. And we'll see if you like any of them. So here's one where I will say, I've heard this over and over. Thank you for your patience while I research this situation and get back to you. Maybe you've even written this or said this to a client. Now, what if you said this instead? Thank you for bringing this situation to my attention. Would you be willing to give me a little bit of time to research this and get back to you? So do you hear the difference? One is talking at, thank you for your patience while I research the situation and get back to you. But one is talking with, because you're actually asking permission. Thank you for bringing this situation to my attention. Would you be willing to give me a little bit of time to research this and get back to you? Now, people are probably going to say yes to that second option, whereas the first option, there's no dialogue, there's no back and forth. But if somebody gives you permission to take a little time and research, they're going to give you a little bit more grace. That's been my experience. Now, here's a second option, depending on what's going on. You might hear somebody say, thank you for your patience. I'll get back to you once I have more information. So thank you for your patience. I'll get back to you once I have more information. So here's a possible response here. Now, if this was somebody has brought to your attention that something has gone wrong, so this would be my response to them. Please forgive me for this misstep. With your permission, I'd like to take a little bit of time to come up with a few possible solutions and get back to you later today. Would that be acceptable? I don't know if you like that one better. So the difference, I'm going to give them one more time. Thank you for your patience. I'll get back to you once I have some more information. Or, please forgive me for this misstep. With your permission, I'd like to take a little bit of time to come up with a few possible solutions and get back to you later today. Would that be acceptable? Now think about how would you respond if somebody wrote that to you in an email? Which one would you feel better about? Which one would be a rapport builder? And maybe you're fine with both of them. And that's okay. This episode is not for you then. This episode is for people like me who do not like to be thanked for their patience, would rather be asked for it instead. But which one, if you got the second option, which is that with your permission, I'd like to take a little bit of time, come up with a few possible solutions, get back to you later today. Would that be acceptable? Like if somebody wrote that to me, I'd be like, yes, I'll look forward to hearing from you later today. Now, of course, you got to keep to your commitment. If you say you're going to get back to somebody later that day, get back to them. And even if you don't have a solution yet, you might say, I've been doing some research and I'm wondering if you'd be willing to give me a little bit more time to see if I can come up with some possible solutions, right? That's okay. All right, here's the third one. Thank you for your patience while I find a solution. Now, we'll see if you like this one. Now, this is my response is like when you've dropped the ball. I know I did a podcast episode recently where I was talking about following up with people when you've dropped the ball. You don't always need to bring it to their attention, but when it's like so evident that you really have dropped the ball, like this might be what you would say instead. I apologize for dropping the ball. I'm a big fan of asking forgiveness and apologizing, like when I have done something wrong. I think that's acknowledging, like, I see that I made a misstep here, so I apologize for dropping the ball. Would you be open to giving me another chance to make this right between us? With your permission, let's set up a time in the next few days to get on a call and talk about how I can best resolve this situation to your satisfaction. Now, which of those would you be more inclined to feel good about if you were in the position that somebody dropped the ball with you? Would you want them to just say, thank you for your patience while I find a solution? Maybe that's enough. Or would you feel better if they said, I apologize for dropping the ball? Would you be open to giving me another chance to make this right between us? With your permission, let's set up a time in the next few days to get on a phone call and talk about how best I can resolve this situation to your satisfaction. Now, I'm going to take that one step further if it was me, and I'm going to give them some possible times to actually schedule the call and see if I really can find a solution. And maybe it's just an opportunity for them to say like, no, Nikki, you can never find a solution. Go kick rocks. I never want to talk to you again. They probably won't get on the call with me if they're that upset about it. But if you can really show somebody like, I'm here, I hear you, I see you, I care about the relationship, and would you be willing to allow me some time to fix this? Or would you be willing to, and even you can even say like, would you be willing to give me some grace? Or would you be willing to be patient while I look for this solution? Like, just ask. There's such a difference between assuming permission for something and asking permission from somebody. And I just think it's such a rapport builder. So if you like that, this episode is for you. I hope you found it helpful. It was just something I wanted to pop in here and share today, this week, because I just find over and over and over again, these common phrases that are so used in our society, sometimes they don't set you apart if you just sound like everybody else. But if you really take the time to pose questions to people versus assuming their permission, then it's a big difference in how the relationship goes. And it makes a huge difference to the bottom line in how you can earn somebody's business. I know from years and years and years of selling and working for big companies that would drop the ball, sometimes things that were so out of my control, that if I could ask permission, if I could be upfront with somebody and not just assume that they're going to let me solve it, but if I would ask their permission for an opportunity to solve it, for an opportunity to make things right between us, most of the time the answer was yes. People were willing to give that grace, because I find that most people are nice. Unless you've like really, really damaged the relationship, most people are going to give you that little bit of grace. So I hope this is helpful. And so If you've been listening to the podcast, you know that 2021 is the year of the question. So I've given you some questions here. So I'm just going to reiterate one of them in particular, because this is a good one to have in your back pocket for those times when things haven't gone well. Instead of saying to somebody, thank you for your patience, here it is. Would you be open to giving me another chance to make this right between us? Now, of course, you can use this question in all different types of situations in your life and in your business. And I hope you will keep it in your back pocket and pull it out at the appropriate times. Now, of course, how you say it is going to matter and how it's received. So make sure there's some sincerity in the way that you pose the question to the other person. Be sincere, be curious, and wait for their response. Don't just bulldoze over the question and keep talking. Ask the question and then zip it. Let the other person answer. All right. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. There is nothing more delightful than hearing from podcast listeners, having people share their takeaways from episodes, having people tell me that they've implemented things into their own business and gotten results. So I hope this will be just another little nugget for you to take away for today. And please come back next week. There'll be another episode for you. And if we haven't connected yet on social media, let's do that. I tend to hang out on Instagram and LinkedIn. You can find me under Nikki Roush, or you can find me under Sales Maven. And I'd love to hear from you. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.